Hi all, happy Monday. Welcome to the Wife of Caesar. My name is Michelle Bien, or Michelle Bien, either's fine. As you know, the Wife of Caesar is Streiner's project to talk about corruption or anti-corruption using everyday words so that we can fight corruption in our day-to-day lives with a little bit more than just good intentions. In every show, we have a piece of news, a case, and a typology. Today's news has to deal, again, with Mr. Rafael Correa. Now, he is the former president of Ecuador, and he has been in the news for multiple accusations or alleged acts of corruption. He is again today in the news because he's going to be tried in absentia in his own country. Now, we have discussed what trials in absentia are. Essentially, you are taken to court even though you don't physically appear there. Now, this is kind of the last line of defense for the administration of justice. And this is because trying someone in absentia denies that person of the opportunity to hear the charges leveled against her and to face her accuser, which kind of sounds a little bit unfair. And most countries, most civilized countries with an active rule of law, frown upon this tool. However, sometimes you have to use it. And you use it in very select cases where the accused has subtracted herself or himself from the reach of the authorities, but when the act of conducting the trial might benefit the country more. Sometimes because the original crime is a predicate offense, is the key to unlocking other offenses or other trials that might be more important, or sometimes because of the appearance of the administration of justice. It helps the perception of the rule of law. Now, a little bit of background. In 2013, Correa was allegedly he had a presidential campaign, and he allegedly financed that campaign illegally using, funds that were derived from bribes. Now, the accusation is that he obtained $8 million US from bribes paid by Odebrecht and other companies, but mainly Odebrecht. This emerged, obviously, in the course of the investigations that were led against Odebrecht, and the accusations and the evidence was so overwhelming that Correa simply decided to resign and just, skip away to Belgium. Odebrecht paid bribes to Correa in exchange for, you guessed it, obtaining public contracts. Over the course of his administration, Correa was famous for several things, and numerous factors aided in his resignation and his prosecution. It would be unfair. It would be an unfair characterization to say that he resigned because of the bribes. Not exactly true, but the main factors were that put him in the public eye and that divided the people into two camps, those who were for and those who were against Correa, was that he, around 2013, he defaulted on some international debt. So he essentially said Ecuador had debt, owed money to other countries or international banks. And Correa said, you know what? Nah, that debt is illegitimate, so we're not going to pay and, deal with it. And obviously this sends the wrong message to investors, but it helped him in terms of popularity among the people of Ecuador. And in the same vein, he cut the value of government bonds. Now, government bonds or government paper it's just a fancy way of saying that a country borrows money from someone else. Instead of it being a bank or another country, it borrows money from several lenders, from a bunch of people. And it says, for example, to you, please lend me, say, $100, and over the course of 30 years, I will repay you $130, say. And that is what we know as government bonds or government paper. Correa unilaterally cut the value of government bonds by 60%. That means that he reduced the value of these bonds to 40% of their original value. So essentially, if you lent money to Ecuador, you would receive no interest or negative interest for your troubles, which again was very unpopular with some groups and highly popular with others. This, however, placed him squarely in the crosshairs of the international press and of international attention, and and the Odebrecht situation and investigation was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, in 2017, he resigned and, let's say, traveled, relocated to Belgium, fled to Belgium, and today, or in this year, in 2020, he will be tried again in absentia by the National Court of Justice, which is something akin to the Supreme Court of Ecuador, the highest court in the land. Okay, moving on. As you know, last year, 2019, Transparency International turned 25, and they released a list of the 25 most iconic corruption cases. We're doing our own little rundown of that list, and today we will talk about the Paradise Papers. You, of course, remember the Panama Papers. Not related, however, somehow related, maybe a little bit. The Paradise Papers surround a firm called Appleby. Now, Appleby is a legal firm, a little bit more reputable than Mossack Fonseca, but also a legal firm. Now, they are set up in several countries, one of which is Bermuda, and allegedly the investigation by several journalists pointed to the fact that Appleby helped a bunch of people, a bunch of companies to avoid taxes, launder money, and pay bribes. So all good stuff. Now, Appleby, because of, again, a leak, several journalists received private documents from this law firm, from Appleby, which documents detailed the shady dealings of these companies. So essentially, otherwise people who appeared to be honest and, hardworking, law-abiding citizens were revealed to be hiding assets and money in other countries to avoid paying taxes. Now, this, you must understand that Bermuda functions as a tax haven to several countries. A tax haven, you might remember, is a place or a jurisdiction where tax laws are very lax, very permissive, or sometimes almost non-existent. So you might take your business to that country. You might say that your company is incorporated in that country, and that might lead to you paying less or fewer taxes. Okay, so Appleby, taking advantage of this notion of tax havens and they offered services, what they called offshoring legal services or offshore legal services. Essentially, you tell big companies, I will help you come to this country where tax laws are more lax or non-existent. Now, they helped around 120 people, legal people or natural persons, legal people meaning essentially companies, firms. And among these people were royalty, politicians, oligarchs. You know what that means. Very few countries use this word. Hollywood stars in international companies. Among these companies were Apple, who was said to be hiding $252 billion from the European Union and from the US tax authorities. As a result of the Paradise Papers leaks, the European Union authorities or tax authorities began an investigation into Apple and charged it around about $1 billion in overdue taxes. Other clients of Appleby included Nike, Facebook, and a relatively little known company known as Glencore. Glencore, if you don't know, is in the business of commodities, so things that are sold bulk. Now, they deal with exploitation of minerals, so oil, ore, so essentially the main materials that you use to produce some metals, some raw materials. Now, Glencore used Appleby to set up a phony firm, a shell company in Bermuda, and because Bermuda has very strict banking secrecy laws, essentially the banks are legally forbidden from sharing information about their clients. The line of information stopped right there, and this company Glencore was able to move money to their shell company in Bermuda, probably to other companies in between, and ultimately, to pay bribes to the head of state of the Democratic Republic of Congo in order to, you guessed it, receive government contracts. The main problem with a firm like Appleby helping companies do this is that they aid in, base erosion, which essentially means you lower the amount on which you have to pay taxes, or the declared amount on which you have to pay taxes. Obviously, it helps money laundering, and it helped other companies abuse banking secrecy laws to pay bribes. So all really, really good stuff. Fortunately, this has led to several investigations, a few prosecutions, and a few convictions as well. Let's move on to the typology. Today, we get to talk about prepaid cards. Now, if you think about prepaid cards, you might think about gift cards or Netflix, Google Play, iTunes Store cards, things like that. But today, we're more interested in prepaid debit and credit cards. Now, two major credit companies, essentially Visa and MasterCard, have begun, as of maybe 10 years ago, they started offering this product or this financial service, selling prepaid cards. And this is in the supermarket. You go to the supermarket, you go to say, whatever supermarket is closest to you, and you pick up a piece of plastic, and it's a debit card with an actual number, and you can use that to buy things mostly online. Now, this is meant to help people who are outside or without banking services to access some of these services, and mainly to help them make purchases online. So if you don't have a bank account, you don't have to get a bank account to buy things online. However, the potential for abuse is huge because, as you know, one key component of money laundering is inserting the illicit, the ill-gotten funds into the financial system so that you can use them freely and most likely internationally. Now, this most of the time takes some skill and quite a bit of work. But here, the credit companies, Visa and MasterCard, have made things easier for would-be money launderers because these funds are already integrated into the financial system. And we have talked about in previous shows about pulverization. So this notion of breaking up the funds, the proceeds of crime. So you have $1 million for your cocaine, and you break it up into really teeny tiny amounts of maybe sometimes $40, $100, $200, and you do different financial operations to integrate that into the financial system. You can buy prepaid cards for around $400. And different countries have different limits. But again, this is a much larger amount than what sometimes criminals or money launderers do. So you only have to do reverse pulverization, break up this amount into, again, tiny amounts, have people purchase prepaid cards, which again, some countries don't impose a limit on. And you have your money already integrated into the financial system, and all you have to do is funnel it into another account, probably from a ghost or shell company, and you're good to go. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword. These cards are a financial product that help a lot of people access services that otherwise they would not have access to. However, the potential for abuse is so huge that we feel that this service should probably be, if not disallowed, more heavily regulated. So that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. I will leave you with this. Every act of corruption should be denounced. Please blow the whistle, but do so safely. If you're not sure whether or not what you're looking at is an act of corruption, or you're not entirely sure that you are physically safe, don't do anything. Refrain from acting. Feel free to reach out to people who might help you. Reach out to us if you want at info@streiner.mx, and we will be glad to help you. But above all, please stay safe. Again, this was The Wife of Caesar. My name is Michel Bien, or Michel Bien. Either's fine. And you have a happy Monday.